Imagine opening your eyes on a morning tens of thousands of years ago. There are no solid houses, no hospitals, no supermarkets, and not even a guarantee that you will still be alive when the sun goes down. A sound in the bushes could be a predator. A fruit that looks tempting could contain deadly poison. Even a small cut could be enough to end your life. And yet, our ancestors did not merely survive. They conquered nearly every environment on Earth. They achieved this through survival methods that were strange, daring, and sometimes far beyond the imagination of modern humans. So what were the craziest survival techniques prehistoric people actually used? And what do they reveal about the brain that allowed humanity to endure until the present day? Imagine that you are desperately thirsty after traveling for hours beneath the scorching sun. In front of you lies a small pool of clear water that appears completely safe. You bend down to drink, but an adult in your group immediately pulls you back. Just a few meters ahead, the footprints of a leopard are still clearly visible in the soft ground. For prehistoric humans, a single sip of water was not merely a way to relieve thirst. It could also be a deadly trap. Anthropologists believe that the earliest human survival skill was not hunting or tool-making, but the ability to recognize danger before it happened. Children did not learn this in school. They learned by watching every movement of the adults, memorizing safe paths, identifying edible plants, and remembering the places where they must never set foot. Archaeological evidence suggests that many ancient hunter-gatherer communities passed knowledge down through generations through stories, rituals, and imitation. A single mistake could cost the group one of its members, so survival knowledge became more valuable than any physical tool. But avoiding danger was only the beginning. To survive in a world filled with predators and brutal climates, prehistoric humans invented methods so unusual that today they sound more like legends than reality. Today, we think of fire as a tool for cooking food or keeping warm. But for prehistoric humans, fire was also one of the most intelligent weapons humanity had ever created. What is remarkable is that they did not always use it for direct combat. Archaeologists believe that many hunter-gatherer groups learned to read wind direction, grass moisture, and the surrounding terrain in order to control small fires. Instead of burning down an entire forest, they created controlled burn zones to drive away dangerous animals, improve visibility, and force herds to move in the exact direction hunters had prepared for them. Ancient charcoal layers discovered at many sites across Africa and Australia suggest that humans began deliberately managing landscapes with fire very early in history. This practice did not merely make hunting more effective. It also encouraged young plants to grow after the fires, attracting animals back to the area in the following months. In other words, they were not only hunting the prey of today, they were unintentionally designing food sources for the future. Fire was therefore far more than a flame burning in front of them. It became a tool capable of transforming an entire environment. And once humans learned to control nature in this way, they also discovered an even stranger survival method, turning dangerous animals into their own allies. Given the choice, most of us would probably select a flat area near water and surrounded by trees as the ideal place to build a camp. But for prehistoric humans, those could sometimes be the most dangerous locations of all. That is why they often made choices that appeared completely irrational. Anthropologists believe that many ancient human groups were willing to climb steep rocky slopes, settle on rough outcrops, or build shelters near towering cliffs. These locations were far less convenient, but they were also much harder for predators such as cave lions, hyenas, and leopards to reach, especially at night. By controlling only one or two narrow access routes, the entire group could detect approaching danger from a great distance. Archaeological evidence from caves across Europe, the Middle East, and South Africa shows that humans often chose locations with wide views, narrow cave entrances, and positions elevated above the surrounding landscape. This not only allowed them to observe migrating animal herds, but also gave them a defensive advantage during sudden attacks. Interestingly, our ancestors appear to have understood a principle still used in modern warfare. Terrain can be more powerful than physical strength. A properly selected position could sometimes be more valuable than even the sharpest spear. But even the safest shelter could not solve another problem. How could people find drinking water when every water source might become a trap occupied by waiting predators? To us, rivers and lakes are symbols of life. But to prehistoric humans, they were also among the most dangerous places on Earth. Nearly every animal needed to drink, which meant that predators also waited patiently nearby. One moment of carelessness could turn a human into the next meal. Archaeologists and ecologists believe that many hunter-gatherer groups developed safer ways to obtain water. After rainfall, they collected water from natural depressions in rocks, where it had gradually settled and filtered over time. In dry regions, they dug shallow holes in the sand near riverbeds. Groundwater would slowly seep upward, producing water that was clearer and contained less mud than water taken directly from the river. Some communities also extracted water from vines, succulent stems, or liquid-rich roots. These were not abundant sources of water, but they could sometimes provide enough to sustain life for several hours or even several days. Research on modern hunter-gatherer communities, such as the Sand people of the Kalahari Desert, suggests that these skills may have existed for tens of thousands of years. They understood that survival did not always depend on finding the place with the most water. Sometimes, it depended on finding the least dangerous place from which to collect it. But water only helped humans survive for another day. To endure over the long term, they had to confront an invisible enemy more dangerous than any wild animal: the cold. And the way they survived winter may have been even more astonishing. When we imagine prehistoric humans living during the Ice Age, we often picture them wrapped in thick mammoth hides and huddled beside a fire. But warm clothing was not the only thing that saved them. What truly protected them was their ability to create an entire heat retention system. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of shelters constructed from mammoth bones, wood, and animal hides in Eastern Europe, dating back approximately 15,000 to 20,000 years. These structures were designed to block the wind, retain heat, and minimize energy loss. Fires were not always placed directly in the center of the shelter. Instead, they were positioned so that warmth could spread evenly while smoke still had a way to escape. Anthropologists also believe that people often slept close together in groups. This did not merely provide a sense of safety. It also allowed their bodies to share heat. On nights when temperatures fell below freezing, the warmth generated by multiple bodies could mean the difference between life and death. What is remarkable is that they did not fight nature through brute force. They used the laws of nature to reduce the amount of energy their bodies needed to consume. This was an extremely intelligent biological strategy, and modern science still considers it one of the most effective ways to preserve body heat. But even after overcoming the cold, another major problem remained. How could they find enough food when the entire landscape seemed to contain almost nothing left to hunt? If a modern person looked at the diet of many prehistoric communities, they might feel shocked or even disgusted. But in a world where starvation could last for weeks, the concept of delicious food barely existed. The only question was, will this help me survive for one more day? Anthropologists believe that ancient humans possessed a level of dietary flexibility rarely seen in other species. When they successfully hunted a large animal, they used almost every part of its body. They consumed not only the meat, but also fat-rich bone marrow, liver, heart, kidneys, and many other internal organs. The parts many people discard today contained precious calories and micronutrients in harsh environments. When meat became scarce, they quickly shifted to insects, bird eggs, small animals, fish, shellfish, roots, seeds, wild fruit, and mushrooms. Many archaeological studies have discovered traces of ancient starch on fossilized teeth, showing that plants played a far more important role than we once believed. This adaptability allowed Homo sapiens to expand from the grasslands of Africa into the frozen regions of northern Europe and even to distant islands. They did not depend on a single source of food. They constantly adapted to whatever nature provided. But there was one survival method even more daring than eating almost anything. It involved turning the fear of dangerous animals into a human advantage. If a human had to face an adult cave lion or cave bear directly, there would have been almost no chance of victory. We do not possess sharp claws. Our jaws are not powerful enough, and we cannot outrun most predators. And yet, humans survived and gradually became the dominant species. Anthropologists believe that the secret was not strength, but the ability to make predators hesitate. Instead of fighting alone, humans appeared in groups. They shouted together, struck stones against one another, waved burning branches, or raised their spears high to make themselves appear larger than they truly were. to many predators. Prey capable of coordination and producing overwhelming noise represented a serious risk of injury. Studies of modern animal behavior show that predators often avoid confrontations with a high level of danger. Even a minor injury can prevent them from hunting and eventually cause them to starve. Prehistoric humans seem to have understood this principle intuitively from a very early time and turned the fear of their opponents into part of their own survival strategy. This was a victory of intelligence over muscle. Humans did not always need to defeat nature. Sometimes, they only needed to convince nature that attacking them was not worth the risk. And this ability to cooperate led to humanity's most extraordinary survival method. Something more powerful than fire, more powerful than spears, and even more powerful than physical strength. If we had to choose the single survival method that allowed Homo sapiens to outlast every other human species and conquer nearly the entire planet, it would probably not be fire, stone spears, or clothing made from animal hides. The greatest difference was the ability to share knowledge. Anthropologists believe that no individual could remember every edible plant, every animal migration route, every warning sign of an approaching storm, or every method of producing tools. But when those experiences were retold around the fire, passed from elders to children, and continually improved from one generation to the next, the entire community became more intelligent than any single individual. Archaeological evidence shows that techniques for shaping stone, making bone needles, weaving cord, building shelters, and organizing hunts were preserved for thousands of years. This would have been nearly impossible without language, observation, and the ability to learn from one another. Every new generation did not have to begin again from nothing. They stood upon the foundation built by those who came before them. Perhaps this was humanity's most insane survival method of all, transforming experience into inheritance. Instead of passing down only food or tools, they passed down ideas. And those ideas allowed humanity to survive the Ice Age, cross oceans, conquer continents, and eventually build the civilization in which we live today. Because sometimes, the most powerful tool is not held in human hands. It lives within the stories told across countless generations. When we look back at these remarkable survival methods, we realize that what allowed our ancestors to endure was not superior strength, but the ability to adapt, learn, and cooperate. Every human alive today is the result of hundreds of thousands of years of creativity used to overcome adversity. And perhaps the greatest legacy left behind by prehistoric humans was not their tools, but their unbreakable spirit, the determination to never give up. If you believe the survival methods of our human ancestors were even stranger than you ever imagined, leave a comment and tell us which one surprised you the most. Do not forget to like and subscribe so you can join us as we continue exploring the most fascinating mysteries of history, archaeology, and human evolution. And if you want to discover how prehistoric humans managed to survive against cave lions, cave bears, and other gigantic predators, watch the next video now. How ancient humans defended themselves against predators.